Hello and welcome to Retro Gaming Swede. My name is Oskar and today I'll show you 5 more must-have games for the NES. If you missed the first one, there will be a link in the description. As usual, we'll start off with a couple of obvious games and then move on to some more obscure titles. Of course, if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe, or if you want to see some other NES games in part 3 of this series, you can always leave a comment down below. Just keep in mind that I try to only talk about games most people can afford and are worth their price. So no Mr. Gimmicks or Jetsons, please. So after all that, let's get on with the show, shall we? The first game is an absolute classic. Do you like the color blue? Maybe you like to jump and shoot.
Do you wanna die?
The first game is, of course, Mega Man 2. Yeah! Mega Man 2! Maybe the most important game to get for your NES collection. Yes, I know there are a whole ton of Mega Man games, but honestly, this is the best one. The later ones also get crazy expensive too. The higher the number, the more expensive they get. Oh, and also, you don't really have to buy it complete in box if you want to keep the cost down. The awesome music blasts through the speakers like nothing before it. It's some of the most recognizable game music in the world, and boy does it still hold up. I mean, it's so good you can even listen to it on Spotify. The bosses are also very fun and imaginative, like Metal Man, Bubble Man, and Wood Man. Don't Google the last guy or you'll get some weird results. The rock, paper, scissors system of the bosses are also very well implemented, and as long as you know in which order to play the different bosses, the game isn't really that hard until you get to Dr. Wily's castle. This is where you really get a chance to use all the different weapons and items from the earlier stages, and this is also where the game gets seriously difficult. The controls are, as always in Capcom's games, absolutely perfect with no lag or anything. So if you've got yourself a machine that plays NES, this is the first game you should get. It's absolutely amazing, and even though it gets crazy hard in the later stages, this is an absolute must-have game. The next game is another Capcom classic, based on one of the best Disney TV series of all time. No, it's not the Gummy Bears. Sadly, I don't think there are any Gummy Bear games. I'm of course talking about the Ducktales. Now, this game is absolutely amazing and totally a must-play. It's a great platformer with a gimmick. You can use Uncle Scrooge's cane as a pogo stick, and that's used to avoid spikes and defeat enemies. If you didn't play this back in the day, then go get it now! The stages look fantastic for an NES game, and they are absolutely littered with secret areas to find and treasures to pick up. There's also quite a variety to them, and you go to such different places as the Amazon jungle, Transylvania and the moon. All just so Scrooge can get his hands on some more millions. The controls are absolutely solid and feel great. Once in a while you'll meet up with Huey, Dewey or Louie, who gives you hints or a special item. Launchpad is sort of the mid-level checkpoint and can help you get back to Duckburg if you want, and Miss Beakley can give you treats to restore your energy. The bosses are pretty weak overall, and most of them are real pushovers actually. Just like most Capcom platformers, this game has that amazingly balanced difficulty and never feels like it gets either too hard or too easy. The only real drawback of the game, I think, is that there's no continues. If you lose all your lives, you'll just have to start from the beginning, with all the treasures to pick up again. That said, this is a really solid platformer and is also an absolute must-have game for the NES. The next one is sort of the opposite of the other two. Made by Konami, this is a sort of an overlooked game, and it's a sequel to a game we in the West never got to play. Based on a great movie that never got a sequel. Can you guess? It's the Goonies II. The first thing you'll notice is the theme song. It's an awesome 8-bit rendition of the theme song, sung by Cyndi Lauper from the movies. The Goonies are good enough. It sounds great through the NES and is a really catchy tune in and of itself. The game takes place in probably the biggest freaking house in the whole world. You have the main floor filled with jumping spiders, a multi-level basement littered with snakes, and a huge fridge of several levels that'll house all the beer you need for a lifetime. All is separated by a hanging bridge. The game is played similar to Metroid, but this time you have a map! Although it won't help you much since nothing is marked out until you find the magical locator device. That'll show you where one of the kids are. My tip is to copy the map to a piece of paper so you can make notes on it. Because the game sometimes make it necessary to backtrack to rooms you've already visited, and since they're not marked, you're in the brown if you don't remember where they are. When you open a door, it sends you into first person mode, and this is where it gets real tricky to not get disoriented. Sometimes you're supposed to press down to go back to where you came from, and sometimes you're supposed to press forward. No logic at all. Anyway, behind the doors are where you'll find most items you need to go forward and meet all the weird characters. There's an Eskimo in the frozen area, and there's even a superhero called Konami Man that will heal you in some rooms. You can find different weapons through the game, like the boomerang and a slingshot. I do, however, prefer the yo-yo you start with. That's awesome. It's not just Zootropics where you use a yo-yo to attack. Anyway, if you like games with huge maps and cryptic clues like Metroid, this is a really solid game to pick up. This can also be found for pretty cheap. Do you want to take it easy with more of a brain teaser? Do you like magic and puzzles? Do you think puzzle platformers are the best thing ever? Then you're in luck, because this baby is dirt cheap. Solomon's Key. Now I know this doesn't look like much, but this is actually a pretty decent game. You play as a mage called Dana, tasked with finding Solomon's key and need to go through 50 rooms to get there. All are one-screen platform puzzlers and they are not easy. You really need to think in this one. Every room has you tasked with picking up a key to unlock the exit. On the way there, you can find different power-ups like fireball magic and point bonuses. Dana has the ability to either destroy blocks or make new blocks, and many of the puzzles involve you making stairs to get to higher points while dodging enemies or projectiles. The game can get a bit frustrating, but the levels never feel impossible and you'll most likely get a little bit further every try, making you want to try and try to get past to the next room, and once you figured out how to get past it, you really feel satisfaction. There's a pretty big variety of enemies that each have different abilities that make life hard on you. And it's pretty fun to go around the different rooms trying to find all the bonus items. Just remember that most enemies can destroy the blocks you make. So, if you enjoy games that forces you to use your brain, this is an absolute must-have game. Seeing that this is one of the really cheap games for an otherwise seriously overpriced system. Now, the last game is made by Rare but didn't make it to the fantastic Rare Replay collection for the Xbox One. The game with the most hilarious death animation in any game ever. Oh, and it has the fabulous Fabio on the cover. Wizards and Warriors 2 Ironsword. This is another game that doesn't really look like much, but in my eyes this is a real hidden gem. You play as Kuros, the most powerful warrior in the world. A guy so incompetent he doesn't even know how to swing a sword. Just look at this, it's absolutely worthless. Happily, the enemies die if you jump at them or land on them, so you don't really need the sword attack most of the time. Then we have the moves he does when he dies. What is this? He looks like a 5-year-old having a tantrum in the middle of the supermarket. Anyway, the levels are pretty big and there's tons of treasure to find everywhere. You can upgrade your sword, but the attack doesn't change. Most of the game involves you going upwards trying to find doors that leads to more treasure and level specific items that's needed to advance. Like the golden egg on the first level and the golden bug on the second level. The jumping works really well and generally the game plays solidly. The bosses are all weird renditions of elemental spirits and look pretty funny. This is one of those games everyone had back in the day. It sold over 50,000 copies in Europe and a whopping 500,000 over in the US. So it's not just my imagination that this game was in every kid's home back in the day. That and the status as an overlooked game means that this can be found for under €10 in Europe and under $5 over in the US. So that was my 5 picks for another 5 must-have NES games. If you missed the first part, there will be a link in the description for the first one. What do you think of my picks? Are there any games I've missed so far? Are any of these absolutely horrible? Tell me in the comments and make sure to click the subscribe button and leave a like if you want to. If you subscribe, don't forget to turn on notifications so you'll be instantly notified when I release something new. And if you want to be extra awesome, share this video with your friends and enemies. I usually post my main content on Wednesdays and try to throw in a live stream once a week. Currently, I'm trying to get through Castlevania Aria of Sorrow from the Game Boy Advance. So, if you want to see me kill some monsters and eat their souls, give it a watch and join me in some friendly conversation. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my video and I hope I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.